After originally looking like he was going to be safe, Antonio Pierce is in fact out as the head coach of the Silver and Black. That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for January 8th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you, whether you're catching us wherever you find your favorite podcast or if you're checking us out on the YouTube page. We do appreciate that. The show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support, Raider Nation, and by way of the YouTube page, because of my man Ari, who does a great job behind the scenes, making sure we're looking good and sounding good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He does a lot of great work that, a lot of folks have no idea about, but all hours of the night, my man Ari is putting in the grind. So shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line if you want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. Plenty of feedback, as you can imagine, based off what happened on Tuesday when it comes to the Silver and Black. And that is, in fact, the Raiders letting Antonio Pierce know that his services are no longer needed as the head football coach. So he is now out, and the Raiders say, what's next? So a lot of feedback coming up in segment number 3. Speaking of what's next, what is next? Who should be in line to lead the charge? The Raiders have gone through a lot of coaches in the time since the last time they were in the Super Bowl, where they lost to their former head football coach, John Gruden, to even the time that they've just been here in Las Vegas. They've gone through a lot of coaches. So who is next to lead the charge? We'll talk about that. We'll do all that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. And I don't think it's going to be a surprise when we talk about what it is, and that's Antonio Pierce being let go as the head football coach. We've got a couple little other nuggets to bring to the table as well. We'll get into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Never too late to jump into the season with a big return on FanDuel, even if it's in the postseason. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. So off top, did not know how this was all going to play out. Thought there was a chance that things were going to happen on Monday. Antonio Pierce could possibly be let go. He was not. Then on Tuesday, around Tuesday afternoon, after spending more time with my phone than I ever want to see if they were going to get any kind of a notification, I was sitting there after having a meeting with my boss at the radio station. All of a sudden, and notification came up. The Raiders are parting ways with Antonio Pierce. And so then I knew it was on and popping. And a few minutes later, the Raiders put out a statement by way of social media. The Raiders have relieved Antonio Pierce of his duties as head coach. We appreciate Antonio's leadership, first as the interim head coach and this past season as the head coach. Antonio grew up a Raiders fan. His silver and black roots run deep. We're grateful for his ability to reignite what it means to be a Raider throughout the entire organization. We wish nothing but the best for Antonio and his family in the future. So there it was. That was the official statement. And as of Tuesday afternoon, Antonio Pierce was out. Now, there was a lot of Raider Nation that was doing victory laps. They were happy because they were ready for Antonio Pierce to be gone as soon as the clock hit 0-0-0 on Sunday, and that's fine. As we talk about on this show all the time, whatever you choose to root for or root against, that's your opinion and that's your right. You've been rooting for the team for a very long time. If you weren't, you probably wouldn't come back to this show each and every day and check it out. So whatever you felt like was the right move, maybe you were one of those that were having a victory lap on Tuesday. Me, I don't ever root for anyone to lose their job. I liked Antonio Pierce a lot. I knew that there was a lot of struggles. As I mentioned on Tuesday's show, I felt like that he still had a long way to go. He didn't do a whole lot to prove that he should come back in 2025. And I honestly thought that the way that the Patriots are pursuing Mike Vrabel, and it looks like they're going to try to get things wrapped up with him quick, fast, in a hurry, that might have helped Antonio Pierce hold on to his job. But in fact, the Raiders just took a little bit more time to decide to make the decision to move on from him. So what took so long? Why did it take till Tuesday when most of the league made their decision on Monday? Here's Ian Rappaport from NFL Network that spoke on it a little bit.
Well, first of all, you're right. This is what Mark Davis does. He went around, talked to several people he believes would provide interesting or important information to him, including, by the way, Tom Brady, who's now limited partner with the Raiders, but including some players, including several other people in the know. This is what Mark Davis does. He solicits opinion, and he makes his own decision. And really, this is something that has been coming for quite some time. Yes, the Raiders finished strong, but there were several signs, several frustrations that Mark Davis had throughout the season, including right around the time of the bye when some wondered, would he make a move then? Antonio Pierce did so much for this organization, leading them out of the abyss last year, getting rehired, as Mark Davis mentioned, reigniting kind of the fervor among the fan base, but the results just were not there. And then, you start to figure out, where could this organization go? You listen to Tom Brady and start to hear some of the names potentially he might discuss to bring in. And then at that point, it was pretty clear Mark Davis was like, you know what? We think we could do better. Now, can they actually do better? That remains to be seen. Frankly, they've been in this situation before. It has been 7 coaches in 13 years. Most importantly today, Antonio Pierce once again out. General Manager Tom Telesco staying, and the Raiders need a new coach.
So there's a few the reasons right there, and just seems like, according to all reports and all the sources that are out there and the different people that I've talked to, and it seems like that Mark Davis was still kind of mulling it over, which to me, I don't think that you need to go a couple days past week 18. Like, if you already had a pretty good idea, and according to what Ian Rappaport was saying, there was thoughts that maybe it was going to happen in the bye week. I don't know what really would take so long to go ahead and make that decision. And really, I don't think that it was a very good move and a very good look for the organization to have him go out there and meet with us on Monday, right? And that was the big hanging point up for me, right? When I was at the dentist appointment, I kept saying, I got to check my phone. I got to check my phone. I got to check my phone. There may be an announcement about, the press conference being moved back or whatever the case may be. But instead, Antonio Pierce met with the media. Everything was good to go. He said everything was good to go. He had his old school Raider starter coat on, and, everything is status quo. And he said that all the rumblings about his job were coming from outside the building, not inside the building. Well, clearly it was coming from inside the building as well. So I just think that there was no reason to roll him out there and have him do that. But in fact, they ultimately did. So, of course, we'll talk about Antonio Pierce and what's next for the Raiders, because that's what matters, right? Doesn't matter how you feel about AP. If you thought he deserved another year, if you didn't think he deserved another year, it doesn't matter. He's out. So now the Raiders have to move forward as an organization, and they have to finally get their ducks in a row as quick as possible, because obviously other teams are out there looking for their head coach and lining up interviews as we speak. As a matter of fact, we also found out on Tuesday, before we found out about Antonio Pierce, the Raiders defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, whose contract expired after the season got wrapped up, he has some jobs lined up as well. He's actually interviewed on Tuesday for the Bengals defensive coordinator position, which, I think that's an awesome job for PG. I think that'll be a great spot for him. I do not think he's going to get a head coaching job based off of what happened with the Raiders in 2024, going 4-13. But I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. I think with all the injuries that happened on the defensive side of things, he showed his worth. And if he goes to a team like the Cincinnati Bengals that have a high-power offense led by Joe Burrow, all the weapons that they have there, and his defense is worth the salt, guess what they're going to do? They're going to win a lot of games. And guess what's going to happen when they win a lot of games? He's going to get an interview for a head coaching job, right? And he'll probably be in line for one. If he has a path, if he's looking for a path to get a head coaching job, it'll be by his team getting a ton of wins. So if he goes to Cincinnati, if he does in fact get that job, goes to Cincinnati as the defensive coordinator there for a year or two, I see a great path for him to be a head coach in the National Football League, which is ultimately what he wants. And I tell you this, a lot of people asked about him not extending his contract when AP became the full-time head coach. I do think a little bit of, that probably had to do with the fact that PG is the one who hired Antonio Pierce. And then when it was time for the Raiders to name an interim, they named Antonio Pierce and skipped over Patrick Graham, who, again, I know wants to be a head football coach in the National Football League. So, again, it makes a lot of sense to me. He also has an interview lined up with the Jacksonville Jaguars for their head coaching opening. They actually put out a tweet saying Kellen Moore, Todd Monken, Joe Brady, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Patrick Graham, and Robert Saleh are all guys that they have lined up to interview as far as their head coaching position goes. And the one thing I hate about the coaching cycle, and anyone who's been listening to this show for a while knows what it is, I hate that as soon as you see a guy like Patrick Graham's name out there, or there's other names that have been out there before, and they say, oh, he's a Rooney Rule interview. And as soon as the Jaguars tweeted that out, I can't tell you how many different people I saw respond with, oh, he's just a Rooney Rule guy. Oh, he's not going to get a head coaching job. And look, the reality of it is when you win 4 games, as your team wins 4 games, you're probably not going to get a head coaching job based off of that. But I just hate the fact that, that's the first thing that's thrown out there. Like, the guy hasn't had, a lot of success in the National Football League. Like, he hasn't coordinated some really good defenses. But immediately the first thought is, oh, he's a Rooney Rule guy. I even saw that attached to Robert Saleh's name. Oh, he's a Rooney Rule guy. And that stinks, right? Because I can only imagine being in that position. I would never want to be that. And I've gone into great detail on those conversations. I know the Rooney Rule worked out for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They interviewed him because they were, following the Rooney Rule, and they ended up being wowed by Mike Tomlin. And I know that's what the rule is set up for when they have to interview, a person of color, and a matter of fact, a couple of them. Like, I get that. That's cool that they're trying to make that something, but whenever a candidate is just qualified as, oh, that's just a Rooney Rule guy, that just stinks. Like, nobody wants to be and have that kind of title. So I hate that's attached to certain guys' name. Like, Leslie Frazier was one of those guys for quite a while. He was a Rooney Rule guy, according to a lot of people. And, I think, David Shaw, even though he's interviewing with multiple, teams, and the fact that he's been in the National Football League as a coach before, and he's obviously got family ties with his dad. Willie Shaw obviously was on the Raiders coaching staff as well as a defensive coordinator. He's been labeled as a Rooney Rule interview too. Again, I would hate that personally for myself. If I was in that position and they said, oh, hey, Q, we want to interview you for this, I would, hey, is this a real interview? Or is this just checking a box? Just let me know, right? I'm going to still go in there and do my best, but my expectations, I don't want to get my expectations up only to find out that, oh, no, he just checked the box and now we're going to go hire some other person. It's an imperfect process. There's not really a way that you can dial it out and say, okay, how do you make it fair? And I say fair in air quotes because there's really no such thing as fair. When you have people that are in position to hire people, they're probably going to hire who they want, right? And that's not just with, head coaching jobs. That's with all jobs in life, right? I mean, there could be any kind of rules in place, but we all know, I say it all the time, and, it's the truth. I've never got a job that I applied for. Right? All the jobs that I've ever received, and especially in this industry, have all been because someone knows me, they know my work ethic, they know what I'm all about, and they reached out to me to gauge my interest well before the job was even available. That's just how it is, and it's hard to avoid that. It really is. So I don't blame teams for going and hiring their guy because that's who they're putting in charge of their team. I get it. So it's really very difficult, but I just hate that, that rule is in place and you have to fulfill that rule. So a lot of people just assume certain coaches out there are exactly that. So again, there's no science to it. There's no way of just getting it right and everyone's happy about it. It just kind of is what it is at that stage of the game. But with that being said, what's next? Right? Who are the Raiders going to look at? What are the Raiders going to do? How do they move forward now that Antonio Pierce is out? What is the direction they should go to try to get it right this time? How many coaches have they had since they've been in Vegas? John Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, Josh McDaniels, Antonio Pierce, whoever's next. We'll talk about that next, coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of this show, which is FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. And with the playoffs coming up, it's going to be fast and furious. A lot of plays that are going to happen that you're not going to expect. There'll probably be some outcomes that are going to happen that you're not going to expect, but that's what the playoffs are all about. What you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. As the coaching carousel continues to go around and round and round for the silver and black. Where is it going to stop? Who knows? But they're now looking for a head coach once again. And my guy, Raider Mike in Colorado, actually sent me this by way of text on Tuesday and said, Q, the Raiders coaches since their last Super Bowl appearance, Bill Callahan, Norv Turner, Art Shell, Lane Kiffin, Tom Cable, Hugh Jackson, Dennis Allen, Tony Sperano, rest in peace, Jack Del Rio, John Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, Josh McDaniels, Antonio Pierce. Since the last time they were in the Super Bowl many, many moons ago, back in the early 2000s. And they've had 7 coaches in the last 13 years. Obviously, there is no consistency there, right? I think the Steelers have had, 3 head football coaches in the last, 40, 50 years, something like that, some ridiculous number. Like, you've got to find a way to have some kind of consistency. And unfortunately, they just don't. So now Antonio Pierce is out. Many people are excited about that because, he just didn't get it done. Winning 4 games is not going to do it. He says it all the time. It's his words, not mine. It's a production-based business. If you don't produce, you won't be in business. So AP is no longer in business. So who's going to be up next? And, of course, we talked about it many times. The easy name to connect with the Raiders is Mike Vrabel because of his connections with Tom Brady. And Mike Vrabel's available, right? He's already taken interviews. He's already talked with the Jets. He's going to be talking with the Patriots on Thursday. And to be honest, I think this bad boy gets wrapped up for him coming up Thursday afternoon. By the time that interview gets over, I think you're going to get an announcement pretty quickly that, the Patriots have hired Mike Vrabel to be their next head football coach. That's just my gut feeling of what's going to happen. Maybe the Tom Brady effect can help put a full court press on him for the Raiders. We'll see. But the Patriots already interviewed Byron Leftwich. They've already interviewed Pep Hamilton. So those 2 head coaches right there, again, I hate to say it, I talked about it in segment number 1. They satisfied the Rooney Rule, so now they're free to hire whoever they want to. They can make that hire quick, fast, and in a hurry. And again, they're trying to get things done as quick as possible. Now, the one thing with the Raiders is even though I feel like they're behind the 8 ball, they're a little bit behind schedule because they waited to move on from Antonio Pierce. That tells me that they've been doing some back channeling. They've been doing some conversations. They've been reaching out. They've been looking to who's available and who would be interested. Again, I say it all the time, and I said it in segment number 1. I've never got a job that I applied for, right? All my radio jobs, podcasts, this job right here, someone reached out to me to gauge my interest. That's what you always do. Even in the position I'm in to be in charge of the radio station, if I was going to make a change before I do, I'd reach out to somebody that I know, somebody that I'm comfortable with, that I know knows how to do the job that I would expect them to do and say, hey, if I was going to make a change here in Vegas, what would the chances be that you'd want to come? And just throw it out there, right? And that's just how things happen. That's how you do the back channeling. And there's no doubt and not a bone in my body that believes that hasn't been going on. Again, there's no reason why it took 18 weeks to decide that they were going to move on from Antonio Pierce and a couple days. I feel like that there was a couple people that they're reaching out to, and there's been reports from folks like Josina Anderson and Albert Breer and others that, there's a couple candidates that the Raiders have been looking at. Mike Vrabel is the easy one to connect the dots. And if you're going to bring in Mike Vrabel, at least he's got a good track record, right? I mean, he went to the AFC Championship game. He went to the AFC wildcard game. He went to the AFC divisional game, all with the Tennessee Titans. And, he didn't win those games. I believe he's 2-3. Yeah, he is 2-3 overall in the playoffs, but he has above 500 record in his career as a head coach with the Tennessee Titans. And for all purposes, everyone's, conversation and all the research I've done on Vrabel, he's one sharp coach. He's one guy that knows all the rules. He knows little loopholes. There's a lot that he knows, and just a well-respected head football coach. So he's one of the guys that I would look at and say, okay, I can get on board with that. Because my biggest thing, even though there's names out there like Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from Detroit, who's the hotshot offensive coordinator, he's never been a head football coach. I don't think that you should get a guy that doesn't have experience. You just had a guy with no experience in Antonio Pierce. I think you have to get a guy, and I said this about the Bears as well. When the Bears opened up their job right after Thanksgiving, when they fired Matt Eberflus, I was on the radio that day, and I said, what they need to do is they need to hire someone that's been there, done that. Not someone new that's trying to feel their way out and say, okay, this is how I think we'll do it. This is how, it's done when I played at this team, and this is how other coaches did it. Somebody that's been there, done that. Somebody that can walk in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This all stops now, and we're going to get to where we need to be, and this is how. And, oh, by the way, let's not forget, Raider Nation, they're in the AFC West. Andy Reid, he'll be a Hall of Famer. Sean Payton, he'll be a Hall of Famer. Jim Harbaugh, he'll be a Hall of Famer. Why am I saying that? Because the division is going to be tough for some years to come. Andy Reid doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Obviously, Mahomes isn't. Sean Payton and Bo Nix, they look fresh and ready to roll. And Jim Harbaugh, I mean, he could probably go on forever. And, of course, he's got Justin Herbert. So whoever's going to come in and compete, I don't believe needs to be someone that's a nobody. Someone that's just getting some experience because, well, they're a hotshot coordinator. Now, if that's what direction they go, okay, that's fine, right? But just understand what it's going to be and that it might take a little bit longer and there might be some more patience that's needed. So Ben Johnson, obviously he's a hotshot name, the offensive coordinator from the Lions. He's a guy that's going to be having a lot of interviews along this process. Aaron Glenn, same team. Lions, but he's a defensive coordinator. He put his best work on film on Sunday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings when that defense was just, man, that defense, that just choked folks out. That choked out the Vikings. Sam Darnold didn't have an opportunity to breathe. He was blitzed on about 56% of his dropbacks. Even Justin Jefferson only had 50-something yards receiving. Shout out to Amik Robertson, who, by the way, held him to 3 catches on the night. He did a fantastic job. Former Raiders cornerback. Shout out to Amik. 5'9" Amik going up against Justin Jefferson, who arguably could be the number 1 wide receiver in the league. Right? So Aaron Glenn, he put his resume out there so everyone could see on Sunday Night Football. He's getting a lot of requests, so he's available. Another name, and I mentioned this a couple days ago, and it's been mentioned to me as well, Pete Carroll, former Seattle Seahawks head football coach. He's a veteran. He's a guy who's a Bob the Builder type guy. He likes to, be able to turn things around. He went to USC and turned things around, won a national championship there. He was doing NIL before NIL was a thing, but he still was able to win a national championship there. Obviously, a Super Bowl winner in Seattle, should have won 2, but they didn't hand the ball to Beast Mode. They decided to want to throw it. But you see what he was able to build there. My problem with Pete Carroll, and I had someone call me out on the radio on Tuesday and thought I was being like biased to him because he was old. And I said, it's not that he was old. It's just the fact that he's going to have to bring someone in that's going to be able to develop a young quarterback, develop an offense. Like that's not proven. He's a defensive-minded guy, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But we all know that the Raiders struggle the most offensively, so he's going to have to put together a really good staff, right? He likes to build, don't get me wrong, and he would love to compete with Harbaugh. That's for sure. He'd love to compete with Harbaugh twice a year. And, of course, Andy Reid and Sean Payton, he's not going to back down to them. That would be, a guy that's got skins on the wall, so I can get behind that, but he has to have a really good staff to go along with them. So I'm kind of lukewarm on Pete Carroll. Again, I like the guy. I love his energy. He's, 73 years old and has a ton of energy. I can appreciate that. He'll get everyone motivated. He'll get everyone rah-rah and ready to go. That's for sure. I'd be interested to see what staff he brings to the table. But he's a guy that I know my guy Vinny Bonsignore has floated out a few times. And as I say all the time, Vinny doesn't just grab a name, pull it out his backside, and throw it against the wall and hope it sticks. He just doesn't. He gets that from a place of he's hearing from somebody, whether it's inside the organization or around the league, people that he trusts and people that trust him. So Pete Carroll's definitely a name to pay attention to. Mike McCarthy, I threw that name out there the other day. He's under contract with the Cowboys until the 14th. The Bears requested an interview with him, and the Cowboys denied that. I think he's going to end up back in Big D. I think Jerry's going to give him a contract extension. But as I mentioned before, his new agent is Don Yee. Just saying, Don Yee has ties to Tom Brady. So I'm just going to throw it out there. I think that would probably be a super dark horse, but that's a name that could be available if the 14th comes around and Jerry Jones doesn't give Mike McCarthy a contract extension. Obviously, he's done some really good things. Won a Lombardi there in Green Bay. A young name, Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. I know a lot of people are high on him. He's done a really good job in Tampa Bay. Again, my big concern is that he hasn't been there, done that. He's the offensive coordinator, and he hasn't even been the offensive coordinator there in Tampa Bay very long. So that's my concern there, but he is a hotshot name to look out for. You'll hear a lot of people throw that name out there. Go hire Liam Cohen. Go hire Liam Cohen. And he's done some really good things with Tampa Bay. I'm not mad at that. But how about this one with the Tampa Bay ties? How about Bruce Arians? What about Bruce Arians? I know Bruce Arians stepped down because he had some medical situations, and I know he's, a year younger than Pete Carroll. I believe he's 72. Pete Carroll's 73. I like Bruce Arians a lot for every reason that I said about a veteran coach, a guy who's been there, done that, a guy that knows how to build it, but he's also, Raider Nation, a guy who's had success. Think about where he's gone. Even when he was at Temple in college, he had success there. But think about this. In Pittsburgh, when he was working with Big Ben, had a ton of success, right? Offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. Remember when he was in Indianapolis? He was working with Andrew Luck, and he filled in for Chuck Pagano when Chuck Pagano got hit with, colon cancer, and he filled in as the interim, had a lot of success there in Indianapolis. Then he went to the Arizona Cardinals. Remember Carson Palmer, after being the quarterback with the Raiders, going to Arizona and having a lot of success there? You know who the head coach was? Bruce Arians. And you want to talk about Tom Brady ties? Who did he win a Super Bowl with in Tampa Bay? Yeah, you got it. Tom Brady. So I could see that, and that wasn't my suggestion. That didn't come out the brain right here. That didn't come out this dome. That was actually my guy, Ryan Hogue, former Raiders wide receiver. He actually called into my radio show. He's always on Mondays and Fridays. He called in on Tuesday and said, hey, I got a name that I haven't heard anyone mention. How about Bruce Arians? And as soon as he said that, he started explaining why I cut him off. I was like, I love it. I love it. And the other reason that I love it is because he can start this process. He can start the process, and look what's going on in Tampa Bay now. He's in Tampa Bay. He had success, obviously, there, won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. He also had success with Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston was a turnover machine. Remember the year he went 30 for 30? He threw 30 touchdown passes and 30 interceptions? Yeah, Bruce Arians was the head coach, and they were a really good team, but they just needed a guy who didn't turn the rock over so much. So that's why they had to move on from Jameis Winston. But after he won that Super Bowl, what did he do? Coach another year and then decided to walk away and pass the sticks on to who's there now? Todd Bowles. I don't know why. I know I see Coach Bowles at the combine all the time. Like, hey, what's his name again? Yeah, that boy bad. No, anyway, Todd Bowles. I don't know how. All of a sudden I forgot his name. But, he passed the sticks on to him. He was the defensive coordinator, said he should be the guy. Byron Leftwich is a guy that also had success on the staff there with Tampa Bay. Remember, he was one of the former players that was on Bruce Arians' staff. So he could put together a really good staff. He can have, if Byron Leftwich doesn't get a head coaching job or he doesn't get an OC job somewhere else, he can end up being the OC along with Bruce Arians. I could see that teaming up together. I like that right there. That's one that sign me up for that for being my 1A. So again, we'll just kind of throw that out there. Brian Flores' name is out there. I know he's got ties to, the Patriots, obviously Tom Brady. I don't know if he really fits with what the Raiders do. I know a lot of people are kind of high on him. He's going to get some looks because of what he's done with the Vikings defense. But again, he's got to be able to bring someone in that can develop a quarterback. And you saw what happened in Miami with Tua. So I don't know if that would be a good thought and a good suggestion to have out there. But I know his name is floating around there as well. But again, that Bruce Arians name is one that I'm a big fan of. And I'll throw this name out here, not because I'm suggesting it, not because I'm pounding the table for it, not at all, but I know the name is out there. And that's John Gruden. John Gruden, that would be 3.0 if he were to come back. Again, it's not my suggestion, but it's been floated out there. There's teams that are interested in him, right? I know that the climate is a lot different now than it was when he had to step down because of the emails and everything else. I still don't think that the way that they came about it was right. What he said in those emails clearly was not right, but the way that they got after him wasn't right either. So, and we all know that Mark Davis is a big John Gruden fan. So I would say it's probably a really dark horse, opportunity. But I would say that there's a chance that he could be that guy that nobody's talking. Well, I don't want to say nobody because there are people talking about him. But I think a lot of people are like, yeah, his name is out there. He could be that guy. I don't think he'll be that guy. But never say never. I did send him a text to ask him, and I got no response as of yet. So we'll see. We'll see if he does respond sometime soon. I'm sure he won't, but he might. You never know. So I threw his name out there when the Bears had their opening on Thanksgiving, when they fired Matt Eberflus the day after Thanksgiving, and I mentioned his name on ESPN radio, and a couple people tweeted at me and heard me say it. So I just shot him a text. I was like, hey, man, I just threw your name out there for the Bears. And he responded. He's like, I think the Bears have their minds on someone else. So it's not like he doesn't respond. He just didn't respond to that one yet. So we'll see what happens. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts are coming up next. We close out the show, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors, including PrizePicks. And you know what time it is. It's playoff time. If you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That's where PrizePicks comes in. If you love football, want a chance to win real money while watching the games, PrizePicks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinion into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With PrizePicks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns, and for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or want to cash out quickly, PrizePicks has got you covered. And with over 10 million members and billions with a B in winnings, it's clear that people are loving the platform. And here's a special offer for all Locked On Raider podcast listeners, Locked On NFL listeners as well, but we won't tell nobody else. Download the app today. Use promo code Locked On NFL. It's all one word to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use the promo code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. I also want to tell you about Rocket Money. And I don't know if you've ever used Rocket Money. If you have, well, maybe they helped you find some subscriptions you forgot about that you were even paying for, or maybe paying for twice. Well, that's happened to a lot of people. They've had subscriptions that they didn't realize they had, and Rocket Money makes it easy to track them down. It's almost like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. You can cancel your unwanted subscriptions right now and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Again, for the folks in the back row, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raider podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's get things started with a quick call from Coop in the 209. He has an answer to what the Raiders need to do next after AP was let go, who the next head coach should be. Here he is, Coop in the 209.
Coop from the 209. Long-time listener. Listen every day at work. Right when you turn on, baby, you already know. Just a little disappointed. I'm hating this coaching carousel. I think we should have kept AP another year. Go get John Gruden. All I have to say. I don't care how much money it is. You got to do whatever it takes to get that man back. That's the one dude I think that can possibly help this team make a quick turnaround. Pay him whatever he wants. Go get John Gruden. Love the show, Q.
Coop, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, I threw that name out there at the end of segment number 2, right? John Gruden. And believe me, I'm not the only one throwing it out there. And I'm only throwing it out there because people have thrown it out there. It's definitely not Q pounding the table. I don't want to get that twisted. I don't want anyone to think that. I was all for him coming back the second time. I thought he was going to be able to do some really good things. But I think twice is enough, right? I don't think you need to have a return a third time. But who knows? There's plenty of people out there that believe so, and clearly you do as well. As a matter of fact, Peter King, you know, he's part of the not the Rush podcast, but the Let's Go podcast. Max Crosby's a part of that. He was talking about the hot names that are going to be out there, and he didn't give a laundry list like I gave in segment number 2, but he did throw out a couple names in there. And, well, like I said, I'm not the only one talking about John Gruden. Check it out.
The two best guys out there are number 1, Mike Vrabel, number 2, Ben Johnson. And then I really like Aaron Glenn. I like Glenn a lot. He's had tutelage under guys like Bill Parcells and, has coached with Dan Campbell, knows Sean Payton well. He knows how it's supposed to look. So I think those 3. And Jim, the dark horse guy, I believe in the coaching derby, who I think you're going to hear a little bit about in the next week or so, is John Gruden. And I don't know that he's going to get a job, but I do think there's a couple of teams out there that right now are doing their homework on John Gruden.
So there you go. Again, Peter King wasn't necessarily talking about the Raiders head coaching job, but you see that he threw that name out there. Obviously, the easy ones are the Vrabels and the Ben Johnsons, but also looking at a dark horse, and he also mentioned John Gruden. So, Coop, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Tony in Clayton, North Carolina. Says, good day, Q. Tony from Clayton, North Carolina. I'm moving on, but I am human. So forgive me if I'm a little blown at the decision to fire AP. Kind of had my guard up even though there was a press conference yesterday. AP looked confident and optimistic about the future, had me fired up. But ain't that how he's been the whole time he's here? And then today all we can do, unless we got shares and ownership in the team, is look forward to the draft. I hate that we're truly starting over, sporting the only consistency we've shown besides losing, and that's the constant change in head coaches. Now, how is that a commitment to excellence? I'm still a fan, still part of the nation, but I feel a bit similarities with teams in Dallas where I'm looking at the owner of our team like some fans look at Jerry Jones. That's Tony in Clayton, North Carolina. Thanks for the text. And, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, right? You can't keep going through the coaching carousel. And I know I've talked about the plan, not just a plan. They really need to have the plan. They really need to have the plan. They can't keep doing this. Right? They just can't keep hiring, firing. It just can't. You can never have a winning product if you keep doing that. It's just too much. And it's here you go again. And someone called in on my radio show on Tuesday and said, would you call this a rebuild? And I was like, yeah. Why wouldn't I call it a rebuild? Sure, right? I don't know what's going to happen with a lot of players. The Raiders have 27 free agents. The coaching staff is going to be new. They have 10 draft picks as of right now. They got over $100 million in salary cap space as of right now. Max Crosby wants some guaranteed money right now, right? I mean, there's a lot that's going into this, and there's a bunch of questions that are going to be had. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of folks that are looking at the Raiders, and I can see how you compare them to the folks in Dallas. The only problem is under Mike McCarthy, the last few years outside of this one, they've been 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, been in the playoffs. They just get smoked when they get to the playoffs. This year, because of the injuries, they weren't able to get there. But at least they've been there. The Raiders haven't been there and done that. It's one off here, one off there, and that's about it. 2016, 2021, and that's it since they were last in the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's not going to get it done. But thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from our guy, Raider X. He's calling to talk about AP letting go, pass on some thoughts about the organization, just in general, that he's got. Here he is, Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Just wanted to comment, give my thoughts and feelings about the release of Antonio Davis, AP. First of all, just wanted to thank him for bringing some excitement last year and going into this season. His energy, his appreciation, and his revere for the Raider Nation and the Raider franchise. He really brought the blood and brought some good memories back and some energy and some real fire. Made it exciting. So thank you, AP. Really, really appreciate it. On the other side, just kind of want to reflect everybody, making, some, bad, comments on him and then some good comments. I just really want to think about, as that he's a good coach, but, as you said, even about the quarterback, when are the Raiders going to really show that they have a commitment to excellence? An okay quarterback, the Derek Carr, the O'Connells, yeah, they're going to be good. They might be serviceable, but we need to always strive for great. And I'm really tired of us just always thinking of, of being complacent and thinking, you know what? Well, that's a good choice. Man, I want to swing every time for the fences. Every freaking time I want them to draft for the fences. I want them to swing for the fences. But I don't want them to overthink, and I think that's how Gruden was drafting. I like the sensible, common sense, practical, swing for the fences, best player available, best coach available. We should always be choosing the best coach, the best player, the best situation, and nothing less. I don't care what it costs, however means possible. I want to be the best. That's what commitment means. And I want the Raiders to do that. By God, if they're going to get rid of him, which brought the passion back, then they better have a plan. I want the Raiders to have a plan, do something about it, and if Mark Davis is really going to show us his salt, I want to make sure that when he goes into the season, he did this last move because he has eyes on somehow beating out the Patriots and going ahead and getting Vrabel. Doing something that's going to say, whoa, that was a shocker. That's what I believe a commitment to the excellence and is the Raider way. Whew, I wish the best. It's going to be a rough one. I'm wait and see. My hopes are there. My love is a Raider. Raider till I die, my brother. Raider X out.
Raider X, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, AP did some good things for sure, right? I don't think anything's wrong with the thank you. I know some people are going to frown upon it. I had one guy, when I tweeted out that AP was let go, this guy was like, well, Q, are you going to cry? And I was like, yeah, yes, I'm crying tears for sure. And it's just so funny. It's like, it's I don't know. It's like you got to be one extreme or the other. I think a thank you is okay, right? I just know when McDaniels was the head football coach and then they fired him and made AP the interim, I know because I was in the building how much of a just bright light that was that shined in the building. It removed that big dark cloud. It got the fan base excited again about the Raiders, yelling Raiders. Regardless, I know that's not winning football. I know that doesn't create wins. I get that. I know being from Compton doesn't create wins. I know driving in a 6'4" Impala doesn't create wins, but it brought Raider Nation back together for the most part, right? I know that, everyone wasn't excited about AP. It was just me. But there, the fact is that a lot of Raider Nation was fired up, pumped up about the energy and the juice that he brought back to the team, including the guys in the locker room, the Devontae Adams, the Max Crosbys, the Josh Jacobs, and others. And I get it. Devontae bailed. Josh Jacobs signed as a free agent somewhere else, right? I get it. Max Crosby says he's not talking about coaches, and he's not doing any of that this year. This year, all he's going to do is worry about playing football. I get that. But that whole building, that whole locker room had a new, feeling about just everything, just excitement, right? Bringing back what a lot of people would call into this very show and talk about the Raider way is gone. The Raider way is gone. He at least brought that back. Again, it did not result in victories. And as he said, again, his words, not mine. It's a production-based business. If you don't produce, you'll be out of business. So I don't think that a thank you is a bad thing to AP. He just didn't ultimately achieve his goal, which was being a successful head football coach for this team long term. Now the Raiders have to find their next guy. But I think for what they needed at that time, just to finish out 2023 and have Raider Nation at least hold their head up high for a while, I think that was something. Clearly, it didn't work the way it was supposed to in 2024. But as I said on New Year's Eve, and the challenge I had for the Raiders in 2025, make Just Win Baby more than just what I say at the end of the podcast or a T-shirt at Walmart, and commitment to excellence more than just a slogan on the wall at the building and a T-shirt at Walmart. Make it mean something. So, and I said it in that show then, whether that means it's with AP or someone else, that's their task for 2025. What they have going on, and they've had going on since their Super Bowl loss to John Gruden and the Buccaneers, has got to stop. It has got to stop, and they've got to be a real organization that's taken seriously and is a real threat in the AFC West. And that's going to be a tall task because those teams that I've mentioned before, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos, are all on a trajectory going up, with obviously the Chiefs already at the top. So the Raiders have a lot of catch-up work to do. Finally, we'll close out with a text from Donald in Oakland. Yo, what up, Q? It's Donald from Oakland. I just want to say I saw the AP firing coming. This whole thing is a cluster F. Looking back at it, I just want Mark Davis to get it right for once. Rome wasn't built in a day. He's got to have some patience. You can't expect to win, attract your fan base, and want players to want to play here if they know the staff will only be around for 2.5 years with a handful of wins to show for it. Knowing Tom Telesco's track record of hiring head coaches, it hasn't been good. I hope with Brady in the building that it's a head coach either with experience or has had success in previous seasons. Anyway, thanks for what you do. I'll be waiting for the new head coach hiring in the beginning of the podcast. Go Raiders. That's Donald in Oakland. And yeah, that's the thing. Whoever you get, you have to commit to allowing them to coach it up and allowing them to build it and allowing them to create a product that you're proud of, that is competitive, that can go and threaten to win the AFC West. You have to allow that to build. You cannot lose patience. So Tom Brady's helping, right? Diana Rossini and multiple others have said that he's going to have a big hand in selecting the next head coach, selecting the next quarterback, being pretty much kind of in charge of player personnel, obviously working with Tom Telesco. He's safe as the GM. So they've got to get it right. They've got a tall task in front of them. It's basically like there's going to be a whole bunch. I'm not a patient person. I like things to be done immediately. I lose my patience pretty quickly. That's just me. It's just one of my character flaws. I have many, but we don't have enough time on this show. It's like having a big puzzle, though. And you shake it up, and then you throw it in the middle of the room. And there's puzzle pieces everywhere. It's like, all right, Jack, go put that thing together. Wait, hold on. You just threw all the pieces around. I don't even know where all the pieces are. Yeah, I know. Go find them. That's basically what you got to do. You've got to locate the pieces. You got to see what fits, see where they go, and you got to put together. Oh, by the way, in a timely manner, while trying to keep your fan base engaged, while trying to keep your fan base believing that you're working towards something. So, yeah, all those puzzle pieces that are on the floor over there that I don't want nothing to do with, yeah, that's what they've got to do. So they've got to come together, and they've got to figure it out. 10 draft picks at least. $100+ million in salary cap space. They've got that. They got the number 6 overall pick in the draft. They've got Tom Brady. They've got, whoever else is consulting, Richard Seymour and others. Go to work. Tom Telesco, get it done. You need a new head coach. Start there. And then you got to, continue to comb through everything that you got, including your own players, who you're bringing back and who you're not bringing back. And then that head coach has got to put his staff together. Hey, look, I say it all the time, and that's a great place to end the show. There's always something going on when it comes to the Raiders. It's never a dull moment. Like, there's one show on the Locked On Podcast Network that will never, ever be sitting in the middle of summer being like, I don't know what to talk about. I ain't got nothing to talk about. Talk about why is there air? There's never, and believe me, Now, I'm not dogging anybody, but there are shows that they don't have too much to talk about. We always have plenty to talk about here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So there you go. We got more calls and texts that we'll get to on tomorrow's show. We'll see what tomorrow brings us. Right? I mean, who knows, right? Who knows what the rest of today is going to bring? Like I said multiple times, you got to keep your head on a swivel because the offseason, even though there's no games being played for the Raiders, it is going to be moving quick, fast, and in a hurry. I'm actually looking forward to Thursday. I believe Thursday morning, I'm supposed to talk to Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was the guy that was very adamant about he would be angry if the Raiders fired Antonio Pierce after one season. Well, they fired him after one season. So on Thursday morning, when I get a chance to talk to him, I'll probably bring it to the show maybe on Friday as we close out the week. I think it'll be really good. I can't wait to hear what Sherman has to say. And, of course, we'll throw some names at him and who he thinks would be good fits with the silver and black. But until then, Raider Nation, as I mentioned, keep your head on the swivel. You never know what's coming next when it comes to the Raiders. But until then, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.